So here we are on deck again, and I went around hunting around the house for some supplies. I keep wanting to say it's not important that you're using the stuff that I'm using or doing it the way that I'm doing it, but it's really about focusing on what's your experience, what do you want to say. So we're still working on the cover. This is still week one. I found some Scrabble letters, which I'm going to glue on there. I could use Elmer's glue, I could use a mix of paste, I can use this 527 glue, which is kind of modeling cement that they have in the hobby stores. Anything is going to work. I also want to suggest that you go through your garbage and, like, I've got a priority mail thing. I'm going to use this as my palette. I got printouts that I don't need anymore, so I could cut this up and use the paper, or I could draw on this and then glue it into my book, or staple it in, or sew it in, or whatever it is that I want. So sometimes recycling is the best way to go. I even have a magazine over there. I could use images from the magazine and cut them out. I used the bottom of a soda bottle and some caps to make these. But I could just as easily taken some foil and ball it up and crumple it into the shape that I wanted, and then added that on here and then covered that with paper mache. Again, you don't have to do paper mache. It's what I happen to do with stuff that was lying around. So now I'm going to give this kind of a color. I could use color pencil. I could even use carbon pencil. You can take pencil and rub it onto the surface, and that'll kind of make some textures sort of stand out. You can rub that in. I'm going to use paint. Now, you might get some paint donated from a neighbor, and that's fine, but I'd like you to avoid stuff called oil paint or oil color. Oil paints take special chemicals to sort of clean and stuff, so what you want to use if somebody donates some paint is acrylic paint. So acrylic is just a kind of plastic. It's easy to clean in some water. You could also use watercolors. I have a nice little set. I'm an art teacher, so I get some good stuff once in a while. But you can use the little Crayola packs, the little freebie ones that you might be able to find sometimes in magazines. So any kind of watercolor would do. And I could do this with watercolor for sure. But I'm going to use some acrylic. So I'm going to set aside my little paper. I'm going to definitely use that another day. And I'm going to go for some greens. So I do have some green, that I can kind of pour out here. It's better to use little and then add more to it. If you use too much in the beginning, then you kind of run out of paint too fast and you end up wasting some stuff. You see also I've got my plastic covering my table. I've got a little garbage bag over here so I can stay neat as I go. I'm sure your parents don't want to see a mess in the house. So I'm going to go ahead and put down these colors, and I'm going to put down a little bit of black and white as well, so I can play with tints and tones. Sometimes when something is just one color, it ends up being kind of boring, kind of like it came out of a Crayola box. Not that that's necessarily bad, but it's kind of nice to have some variety of color. Instead of using black, I'm going to just use a dark color. It's kind of a dark green. I have some black in here, but I'm not going to worry about it. So another trick that I do is I save all these little plastic containers. They work great for paint. And I'm going to have 2 bowls of water. So I've got 2 so I can do my first cleaning here, second cleaning there, and you'll find that it's even easier later on. So I'm going to go ahead and just use some blues. Put that on, and I'm even going to water it down with some water and let that spread out so it kind of soaks in. And as I go, I'm going to even switch colors possibly as I work. But I'm going to go ahead and throw down some blue and just dip in some water to kind of spread it around. And this will make your paint last longer, but it also allows you to see that texture that you put on underneath. I hate losing texture sometimes. I mean, it might be nice to make it look like it came out of a factory and, everything's perfect, but this is not a perfect situation. So I don't mind it being, a little funky, showing that it's definitely handmade. When it looks like it came out of a factory, then maybe it's really less valuable, less special. So you can see I'm not fussing with this. I'm not trying to get it to be perfect. I'm just kind of adding my color and going along. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Add some of my water and spread that around. I'm not doing a lot on the back. I found some of these tiles, so maybe I'll put my name or my website on the back or something like that. So, oh, I accidentally touched the yellow, but that's okay because it's going to go in there anyway. And get that color on there. All right. So we'll get a little bit more on this big old virus. Something else I was playing around with the idea of is I've got these googly eyes. You know, if you don't have them, that's fine. I'm just happen to use them because I want my viruses to look like they've got a little personality. It might end up being too cartoony for me, but we'll see. If you don't have them, can't get them doing the Amazon thing or whatever, but you really want them, you could find old stuffed animals, you know, that are in the closet that will never be used again, and you can rip them apart for parts. It might even be funny to take like an old Barbie doll or Ken doll or something, and then I could put arms on the viruses like it's reaching out, you know, and just kind of hot glue it on there. It's okay to be a little unusual, to kind of have some fun. This might be, you know, kind of our fun time together. All right, so now I'm going to start to put on some layers of colors. So I had the yellow activated, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to try and do that kind of around the edges and stuff, kind of make it look like it's glowing. And I'm blending and blending. I'll go ahead and get some more yellow around the edges here. Try and get the edges of the book too, because those will show later on when I close the book. You notice I'm working with the whole book kind of open, so it's easier for it to dry evenly. Now some of this paper is kind of coming off, but the nice thing about acrylic is it acts like a glue later on. So if you have a little edge pop up, you just glue it back down with some paint. All right, now I'm going to do some of this darker green. I'm going to put that on top. So I'm going to brush it on. Some in the middle here, some variety going on. And I'll do some white, and I'll throw in some highlights. So maybe the top parts of stuff will get a little bit of white. And I can even do that kind of, I'm gonna do that in between. Just catch the, I'm not adding water to this one because I want the texture to kind of show. It's just hitting the top edges of these rough spots. You can see how it's starting to glow now. Catch more rough spots around the edges. Some more white. Now white's going to be your best friend through this project, because if you want to draw or paint inside the pages, you can always add a little bit of white as kind of a whiteout, and then later on when it dries, you can draw and paint on it. I'd even suggest using good old-fashioned white house paint, particularly the flat kind, because you can paint it on and it almost makes the paper, you know, like into blank paper, so you can more easily draw and paint on your stuff. So consider that. And sometimes at Home Depot or some of the big box stores, they're kind of getting rid of paint that people didn't like the mix or whatever, and sometimes you can find some good colors in there. So I'm gonna get a little bit more of this white on there. All right, so I've got some colors going on in there. I really should have listened to myself and have some little cups, because I ended up not using that. I might play with that a little bit, you know, on the spine, and just get some little spots of variety of green in there. But then these paints are kind of wasted. So I might play with these on another piece of paper. So I'm gonna take this, set it aside to dry, and I'll go ahead and make myself some colored paper. So I'm just getting my old copies and putting some color on there. So later on, I can cut this up and it's kind of like I've got yellow construction paper pieces and I can have some green construction paper pieces. I'm just gonna let this dry. I don't know how I'm going to use it, but you don't wanna waste any stuff. And putting a little extra on the side gives you an opportunity to use this later. Like I said, just like construction paper. And it doesn't have to be pretty or flat or whatever. Just kind of get it on there so you're not wasting any of your paint, because later on you definitely will use this for something. Okay, and this is a really great way to recycle and extend what it is that we have, so we'll be able to use it later on. Again, thank God that I covered my table because I've already got some paint on there. You definitely want to make sure your areas are nice and clean when you're done. All right, so that's going to be it for today. I'm going to let this stuff dry. Might add on my googly eyes with some glue, my little COVID letters on the book. I might use some of these letters to put my name on the back. But my cover is almost done. If you have any little doodads or whatever that you can cut out and apply, I could even take a shirt pocket of a shirt I don't wear anymore. I could cut that out and maybe put a pocket in there so you could kind of hide some stuff in the cover of your book. Use your imagination, have some fun with this. It should be expressive. You should later on be able to tell a story about why it is you did what you did. If you just do it because it was fun, I like that color, then it's not as expressive as if you said, well, these are representing the viruses, and I'm gonna put the googly eyes on them because I want them to look cartoony because we didn't take it seriously in the beginning. So it actually has a meaning kind of hiding behind it. I'm not doing it because it's cute. I'm doing it because I'm kind of sending a message. So consider that as you're working on your projects, and each week we're looking for a different theme. So I'm doing just the cover this week. Next week we're going to get into some of the inner pages, and I told you about some of those ideas before. All right, so stay creative and join me through this project. Share with friends. Maybe they'll want to do it too.